going on, fam? Welcome back to the channel. I know it's been a long time. There's been a lot going on just with life and with the truck and stuff over the last few months, but serious this time. I'm gonna try and get back into it, make some videos for you guys, because I know, some people are looking forward to it, and I do try to make some useful stuff for everybody and try to help everybody out. Just to kind of give you a breakdown what kind of went on in the last few months. I blew the motor in my truck. Kind of a long story. It was a long process. I was on a trail when it happened. I guess the combination of the angle and how hard the truck was leaning towards the driver's side, the PCV hose in the back of the motor sucked up oil, and I'm assuming that's what caused the motor to fail. And by fail, I'm pretty sure it actually hydrolocked. Blew two pistons. I think we had like 2 or 3 rods stuck in the block. There was 8 or 9 holes in the entire engine. Oils everywhere. It was a long day. I'll put it at that. It was a really long day. Getting the truck off the trail, getting it back home, and then just trying to figure out what I was gonna do. Originally, I took it to Toyota. I was gonna try and warranty it, see if they could do something for me, because I mean, how often would you blow a motor like that? And that's a pretty catastrophic failure. So, but unfortunately, they seen my truck and they're like, oh yeah, it looks like you have a tune. They checked out the ECU and everything to see if it was good, and I guess they noticed some things were off. Unfortunately, they didn't want to warranty the motor. So originally I was quoted $32,000 for a brand new motor and installation from Toyota. So I told them, I was gonna do it myself. And luckily, I was on Facebook Marketplace and I found someone parting out a 3rd gen Tacoma that had about 15,000 miles, but it was in an accident. So I contacted the guy, got the motor, and pretty much dropped it in. I thought it was working at the time, but I guess when they pulled the motor off, they may not have taped up the intake manifold, so something might have fell in and got lodged in one of the one of the valves. And I guess the valve was held open when we fired up the engine, and the piston hit the valve and caused it to bend. So it was stuck open and kind of, I don't know what happened. But fortunately, I contacted the guy, told him like, hey man, I think you guys might have left something in the motor and it caused it to fail. So he gave me back some money for it, and I took the money that I got back, and I pretty much used it to rebuild the motor, resurface the head, everything, got it all pretty much a fresh rebuild on the motor, and dropped it back in. And I'll add a clip of when we first started it, because when I blew the motor, all the oil just flooded the intake, the exhaust. So when we fired it up, all the smoke was coming out. I was like, there's no way. And it was down for like a few months, so I was expecting the oil to kind of be gone, but I guess it didn't burn out, so it was all just stuck in my exhaust. So there's like a bunch of smoke that came out, and yeah, I'll show you guys the clip and you guys can take a look at it. But yeah, so you guys can see there's a bunch of smoke. Kind of felt bad for smoking out my friend's neighbors. So I ended up getting it to the driveway at least. Started it up and then kind of just drove around the block to kind of burn off whatever oil was still in the exhaust. And over time, it went away. And so far, everything's been going good. And the truck is back up and running. So you can see it right there. Yep, so she's back and running. Got the new rebuilt motor. And for today's video, it's actually not going to be about the motor and stuff like that. I'm going to be installing a winch, finally. I had my Outgear Solutions bumper for a while now, and I just never had a winch because I haven't found one that I really liked yet. And at the time, I was thinking of going with a Warren winch, but Warren actually stopped making Bluetooth controllers. I know the old ones before did have Bluetooth controllers, and I didn't want to have one that had to connect with the wire to operate it, because it's so much more convenient. Like if you're in your truck and you have a Bluetooth controller, you can just sit there, you don't have to worry about a wire if it's long enough and all that. So I found one, and I got this from MJ Motorsports in Hawaii, and it is the new OVS Scar winch. I have a 10K, and it has a synthetic rope. It comes with pretty much everything you need. It comes with the fair lead, end link, the controller, the wire to charge the controller, and yeah, it's a pretty sick winch. For the price point, honestly, I don't know if you can beat this. It might be a consideration for somebody looking for a cheaper option, but still has really good quality and functionality. We're gonna be installing this winch today. I'm just gonna be kind of breaking it down, showing you guys how I'm gonna set it up for my truck. This winch is pretty cool because you can clock the clutch, or the little handle that you use to free spool it or engage it. You can clock it forward or back, I guess, if you needed to, in 90-degree increments. So if you wanted the handle to be in the front of the bumper instead of on top, you can do that with this. And super cool, because some bumpers are a little tight and it's hard to get your hand up there. So being able to access your winch and control everything without opening your hood or making some kind of custom hole to get to it, super big. So I'll keep you guys posted. You guys will see how it's done. So I'll give you guys a little bit of an unboxing video, just so you can kind of see what comes in the package with the winch and everything. So all I did was cut the tape. Everything's still in there. I haven't messed with it. So once you open up the box, they have it really well packaged. Has nice foam. Everything's organized. You have, you know, your negative cables. It comes with good instructions, pretty thorough. Comes with the control box. All the wires are pretty much connected and labeled, so it tells you, you know, which wire is what. So when you're going through the instructions, you'll be able to know which goes to where. You get the Bluetooth controller. It does come charged already, pretty sure. There's the cable for the controller if you need to charge it. Comes with all the extra brackets and hardware. And then let me get this out and I'll show you guys the winch. All right, so here's the winch. So this is the 10K winch, like I said. Has the synthetic cable. Personally, I like synthetic better than the steel cables. They last a little longer if you get them wet, and they're not going to rust out super quick. This is another cool thing that it comes with. I mean, I have a snatch block in case I need it, but this is kind of like a tree saver, or a winch line saver, should I say. And how this works is, if you have a tree or something that you're going to anchor it down to, you wrap it around the winch line and you put that against the tree in the back, and the winch line has something to kind of feed itself through without making direct contact with like the tree or whatever object you're using to anchor off of. So I mean, it's cool. It comes with it, and maybe I'll try it one day. It also comes with a pretty nice fair lead. It's not crazy or anything. It's simple. Has a nice little design, powder coated and everything. So yeah, I'm gonna get to putting this together and I'll show you guys how to do it. All right, so I got everything that's in the box laid out on the ground just to kind of give you an idea of what it comes with. It comes with all the hardware that you need. So these are the two bolts that you're gonna be using for the fair lead once you bolt that on. It comes with the 4 bolts and nuts that are gonna go on the bottom of the winch that go into the winch plate on your bumper. Comes with the hardware to mount the control box. And the cool thing about this is it actually comes with a little bracket, and what this bracket does is, typically your control box would be mounted in the center here, and for Tacomas there's like a little metal support bar that comes from the radiator towards the grill, and this will not fit in the middle if you have that, unless you take it out or make your own or something like that. So what this allows you to do is you can offset your control box or your controller this way over this side, and it'll be able to clear that metal bar that's in the middle, so it does give you a little more space. So I thought that was a super cool option, especially because most kits, it'll tell you that you can relocate it, but they don't actually include a kit or any hardware to relocate it somewhere else in your truck. I mean, you can always MacGyver something and kind of just mount it wherever you want, But just having something simple like that, super cool and really good on OVS for doing that. All right, so for this next part, what I'm gonna be doing is showing you guys how to clock the winch so you can move this clutch handle to the front of the winch, because this is the front face of the winch that's gonna be facing the same way as the truck. So this is where you pull your winch line from, and typically the clutch handle is usually on top, and depending how your bumper is, you'd have to reach on top just to free spool it or engage it. So by clocking it, what I'm going to be doing is rotating this one piece over, so the clutch handle will be on this side, so I can just reach straight into my bumper and then adjust it if I need to. So for this part, it's super simple. What we're doing is removing 7 hex bolts, and they're a 4mm. So I have a 4mm Allen key. Just gonna go around, undo those, and then after that, I would suggest getting a pair of gloves and an old rag, because this part's a little dirty. There's a lot of grease that they pack into this thing, and you guys will see it. Just make sure you keep track of which bolts go where. There's going to be 4 bolts that are a little, or 3 bolts that are on the, I don't know how to explain it. It's like on a higher side, kind of like how this one is, but on the other 3 sides. Those are going to be longer bolts, so just make sure those long bolts go back in the same spot. Okay, so now that I have the 7 bolts taken out, the next thing we're gonna do is move the clutch handle to free spool. So you're gonna have it going this way. You see the arrows that kind of tell you which way to put it. So just make sure it's on free spool before you pull this off. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna peel back these little labels just a little bit, because it's right on the seam. So use whatever you want, leave them on, take them off. It's kind of up to you. I'm probably just gonna take mine off, because it's another spot for dirt to get stuck. This one I'm gonna leave on, just in case somebody else needs to use my winch. They'll know which way to turn the clutch, and they don't mess anything up. Okay, now that's all separated. I'm just gonna pull up slightly, very carefully. So you can kind of see how much grease is in there, and it's like a really thick, gooey kind of grease. So yeah, just pull it off slowly. The gears and everything are still going to be in there. Sometimes they'll come out, but as long as you remember the orientation, it's pretty easy to line these up, because you can always rotate it to kind of get them to seat with each other. But another thing to keep in mind is there is a rubber O-ring, or a rubber O-ring gasket that goes around. Just make sure that doesn't come out, or before you put the end piece on, just make sure that it's all in the grooves so you don't pinch it or you don't have any leaks and stuff. So this is how it was oriented previously. I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees towards the front of the winch, and then I'm going to set it back on, and you kind of just got to find it like that. Boom. Now that's on, I'm going to put the bolts back in, and that's pretty much all you need to do for clocking. Alright, so honestly that wasn't too dirty. I've done this another time before, and when I pulled this top piece off, all the gears fell out, and it was kind of just like super dirty everywhere. So I put on gloves this time just in case, but it came apart pretty easy. So I mean, it kind of all just depends, I guess, but maybe you'll be lucky like me and it won't fall out on you. But yeah, so that's pretty much all you have to do to clock the clutch handle, and then I'm just going to put it back in engage so this doesn't move around all over the place while I'm mounting everything else up. For this next part, I'm going to be mounting the bracket that you use to offset the control box on the winch. So you can kind of see how there's like a corner. This corner lines up with the outside edge, and you can kind of see how nicely it fits like that. One thing I did notice, they do include the hardware to do this, but when you put this through, with the little plate, there's barely any threads sticking out, and you have to put a nut there, and it's not much for the nut to really hold on to. So I was just digging through some hardware that I had laying around, just some extra screws, and I found something. It's not a hex screw, but you can kind of see it's a little longer, and I think it's kind of like the perfect length, honestly. So it's about that much more thread, and I think that should be just enough to kind of give this something to bite onto a little better. So I'm going to try this out, use the little longer bolts, and then we'll put this in. So same thing, line this up, put the bolt through, and then your nut will go over that. Alright, so now that plate's on there, now I can use this and mount it onto the winch. So for this next part, you can see right here, these are the 4 bolts that or 4 holes that you typically use to mount the control box. But because we're going to offset it, we're only going to be using these 2, and then the other 2 is just going to be supported by this bracket that's going to sit on this side. You're just going to take your control box like that, line it up with the holes, and then you're going to put 1 hex screw with a lock washer, and then you're going to line that up, send that home. Alright, that's pretty much all you need to do, and you can see this thing it's solid, it's not going to go anywhere, and those 2 bolts should definitely be enough as long as everything's snug and nothing's bouncing around or hitting the control box while you're driving. For this next part, what we're going to be doing is connecting the wires that need to be connected to the back of the winch where the motor is. If you look in your instructions, they actually have a really good diagram with a picture, kind of shows you what wire goes to where and how they need to be tightened. I'm just going to do a time lapse on this just so you guys can kind of see how I do it, and then yeah, that's it. I know it kind of looks a little crazy right now, but I kind of just ran the wires like this and kind of keep them nice and tight so they're not all hanging out on the sides or getting pinched anywhere on the bumper. So that's kind of why I did it like this. You can kind of run these wires however you want as long as you put them into the right place. So once these are all on, it's pretty much ready to go on the truck. So we'll see that next. Alright, so for the next part, we got the bumper off. This is where the winch is going to be mounted. It comes with the 4 hardware bolts that go in. So there's a little square nut that goes into one of the channels on the winch, and then the bolt goes in from the bottom and then secures the winch there. Just for clearance reasons, there's a crossbar that I'm pretty sure is used to hold the wiring harness right here, and this part on the left side, or on the passenger side if you're facing the same direction as the truck, is a little too low and it's going to touch the control box. So I think it's about 6-10mm bolts. Take this out, I'm going to have to relocate my speaker, and then we'll be able to get the winch in. Now the winch is mounted on the bumper. Here's the 4 bolts, if you can see that go into the bottom of the bumper or the winch. The fair lead has 2 bolts. They're hex bolts, and then the back nuts are 19. So just make sure you don't put your end link on before you put your fair lead on, because it's not going to fit through here. So for the next thing, we're going to be mounting this onto there. There's a little snap ring. I don't know if you guys can see it. So you gotta have some snap ring pliers. Take out that ring, this pin comes off, and then you can put it onto the end of the winch line. And then after that, we can mount this back up. So I had to do a little more clearancing than I expected. There's like a little crossbar that comes out that holds the horizontal bar, and I guess with my OGS bumper, it sits a lot higher than I guess a regular high clearance bumper. So it was hitting the winch over here. So what I ended up doing was just cutting that bracket off, and then now we're test fitting the bumper and everything fits. So now I just gotta see if the grill fits behind there, and as long as it's not hitting anything, it should be good. So now we got the winch all mounted up, got the bumper back on, everything's tightened down. So next step, pretty much just need to run the wires to the positive and negative, and then we'll be able to test everything out, make sure everything works, and yeah. So now that I have the winch in, I can kind of show you guys why you may or may not want to clock the clutch handle on the winch. Now that's on the bumper, it's a lot easier to understand why. So if we're looking at the front of the truck right now, right? This is the clutch handle, and typically it would be mounted on the top. So I mean, if this area was like a tight or a small hole, or it was like a tight gap, and you have to stick your hand on top to activate it, then it can be a little tough. So by clocking it, puts the clutch handle in the front here, so I can just stick my hand right there and just activate it, or free spool it if I need to without having to like fish my hand in there and try and find it. So that's just kind of the logic behind that. And other than that, the winch is in. Right now I'm gonna do a little test, I guess. I mean, I don't really have anything to winch to or that I need to winch, but I'll just kind of show you guys how to spool it, or to pull the winch out and stuff like that. That's pretty much the install process for these winches. And again, this is the OVS Scar 10K winch with the synthetic rope and the Bluetooth controller. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment down below. Hit me up on Instagram. Don't forget to like, subscribe, do all the things. All right, till next time, shoots.